A former African Union United Nations envoy to Sudan has called the military coup in that country shocking, but warns it will be difficult to dislodge the democratic trajectory of the country. Speaking to the SABC Sherwin Bryce-Pease, Ambassador Kingsley Mamabolo says that the bigger mission for the country's leaders is addressing the economic concerns that also require the international community to do more to shore up the transition. Mamabolo says that he remains hopeful that all might not be lost despite developments on the ground. Here now, that pre-recorded conversation from earlier today.
Ambassador Kingsley Mamabolo, welcome back to SABC News. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers.
When we last spoke, Ambassador, in December last year, you warned that despite the political changes that Sudan had undergone since 2019, the country remained fragile and beset with problems. I imagine, therefore, that this military coup and the detention of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok comes as no surprise to someone like yourself.
Yes, but Sherwin, let me first say this is a shocking development. When this happened, obviously you have an alliance, a cooperation, coalition of the military and the civilians, and we had hoped it would work. And I'm not in a hurry to condemn anybody at this point in time, because I thought whoever was part of the coalition was genuine, committed, and they saved the situation at the time. At the time, you had a critical situation with the Islamic fundamentalists being a big threat at the time. And some of the military people that you see there intervened to ensure that we have the arrangement that we have. And of course, intervened on the side of the people. The people were tired. They had been under a dictatorship for a very long time. And they now felt that there should be change. And we were then saying, if you recall, that not everybody in the military is bad, that some elements in the military coming also from the people themselves, these are the sons and daughters of the people who were protesting against Bashir, could be pulled and to accompany this process and be part of this process. And indeed, at that time, and many of them did exactly that. We had the military intervening, and throughout this period of transition, you will agree with me that the civilians, if they were alone, there would have been a coup. But you've had some of those military people participating with them, ensuring that this does not happen. They have intervened where there was mutiny and many other issues. And so we're surprised that this is happening at this point in time. It's not good for Sudan at all.
So in a sense, Ambassador, you are saying that the military, as part of this transitional council, actually brought stability to Sudan when the situation itself was very tenuous in the aftermath of the ouster of former President al-Bashir. What then are we to make about these developments on the ground, right? I mean, you have the former president still incarcerated. Does the former President Bashir still have support in the country, and to what extent is that, resurfacing the old fractures that brought us to where we were in 2019?
Exactly, Sherwin. Look, the military is not homogeneous. Not every military is behind Bashir. And so you have to make that separation, that you have the Islamic fundamentalists who are behind Bashir, military, many of them. But there are those, first and foremost, the movement towards change, towards democracy, is undoubtedly because of the people. You remember there were millions of people in the streets who said enough is enough. As you see now, I think some 2-3 days ago, we had millions in the street. And the people can't be wrong. They know what they want. They know what they have suffered from under Bashir and so on. And they don't want to get back to that situation. And so this coalition, we praised it because some of the military realized that you can't go against the people. And these are the people who are in this coalition. And so we trusted them, and I think the people trusted them, that whatever they're doing in good faith, their intervention, making sure that Bashir and his military does not upset the wishes of the people, intervened appropriately at the right time and so on. And so indeed, yes, we are shocked that this is happening, but I still think that perhaps whatever motivated them to join, some of them at that point in time, it can still work. People have to intervene, the AU, the UN, to remind everybody that, look, you had a mission. It's quite easy to be tempted. Power is always tempting. It's clearly that some people tend to be greedy here and there. But obviously, the bigger mission is there, and that is the interests of the people, and they must be kept on that mission.
I will talk to you in a short time about what the international response needs to be now. Let me just ask you this, right? The pace of the transition has been hamstrung, Ambassador, by an economy that has for a long time been on the brink of collapse. A key part of this rebirth was Sudan's removal from the US list of state sponsors of terrorism last December. Of course, this would then open up foreign investment, access to the IMF, the World Bank, and other international financial institutions, and something that the UN and the African Union had pushed for a very long time. So it opens up this new space for Sudan, and now it seems to be, in the country, you seem to be taking a step back. What are the implications? I mean, it's, in terms of trajectory here.
Well, as I said, the intention of the coalition was good. And obviously, this was going to be a coalition that is in transition, which was going to be preparing the country for election, for a new constitution, but also begin to do something about the economy, the situation that you just described now. Remember that this situation was the downfall of Bashir. And despite the fact that you had this political coalition and so on, it didn't mean the problems went away. It meant the economic problems that were there were still there, and the country was still going to suffer. So the same problems that beset the Bashir regime, the new coalitional partners were faced with those same kind of problems. And to the extent that they are not able to resolve those problems, to the extent that the international community is not intervening enough to assist in that economic process of revival, the extent to which they would also be in danger of falling, because to the ordinary people, it is not the faces that change. It is the situation that must change on the ground. They want to see bread on the table. And they have been under severe, stringent economic problems and measures which continue up till this day. Unfortunately, one must say, the coalition that was formed has not been able to lift Sudan out of that economic problem which Bashir himself encountered previously.
And of course, a transition that happens, of course, just before a global pandemic that has had severe economic implications for many, many African countries, no less Sudan. What, Ambassador, are the implications of what we are seeing now for the region, right? You have a conflict in northern Ethiopia, the Tigray region, which borders Sudan. You have South Sudan, where the political situation remains tenuous, the Central African Republic right next door. A region that has become a tinderbox for intractable, man-made conflicts that appear, Ambassador, to just be getting worse. What happens? What should the international community's response be here?
Look, when this happened in Sudan and we saw this transition from the regime of Bashir, we're very happy because Sudan occupies a very key position in East Africa and in Africa in general. Sudan borders with about 7 countries, which all of them, one way or the other, have their own problems. The Eritreans have their own problems there. And as you can see now, the Chadians and everybody. And so if we could stabilize Sudan, the chances is that we're going to stabilize the region in the long run. Sudan could be a factor. And so the intervention by the international community, by the AU, is most appropriate in that regard. We would want to see the same happening. Let's not forget what the Sudanese have been through throughout all this. And let's not lose hope to bringing some stability to the entire region, which potentially saving Sudan from a serious collapse, because any other thing except what we have intended would lead to collapse of Sudan and definitely not good for the region. So we would really urge the UN, the AU and everybody to move with speed, not to allow that. We can see the people of Sudan are not going to accept anything less, particularly if you remind them of what happened during the Bashir's period.
Final question for you, Ambassador. What is your message to Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who is essentially the de facto head of state and the leader of this military coup? What does he have to do right now? You say you're hopeful. What are your expectations of the military in this moment?
Look, as I said, and I've had occasion when I'm in Sudan to meet with those military people, including Burhan himself, that we still believe that they are men of integrity, that they took part in all this, not for themselves, but for the people of Sudan, and that whatever arrangement, if it is going contra to the interests of the people, if you see millions and millions of people in the street, means they do not appreciate whatever changes you want to do. It is important that we appeal to their conscience, we appeal to their goodwill, their spirit. We still believe that Burhan and the others can play a part, and it is important that he does so. Talk to him, let him sit down and reflect a bit in the direction in which all this is taking Sudan and the region.
Ambassador Kingsley Mamabolo, former Joint Special Representative of the African Union and the United Nations to the former hybrid operation in Darfur, where he was based in the capital, Khartoum. He is also South Africa's former permanent representative to the United Nations in New York. As always, sir, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for having me, Sherwin.